Finally getting his turn with the Tuneup Treatment, it's the baby type that anime lovers and game players know very well, and especially more so than this, fear. It is BAY00 Primity Baby, REGRADED, with a kit of Force Control, Defense Seal, Hypercrept, Float Legs, and the leg ability of Auto Repair, which passively restores HP to damaged parts over time relative to the amount of Medaforce charge you have in your gauge. Now, as a mixed fighter like Primity Baby is, it has undergone a little bit of a kit change, but still, even at its core, maintains its essence as an interruption-based fighter, and really nothing more than a massive headache on the field. But those that have played the early games will know this especially well, and be thankful to know that even if its kit is largely the same for the most part, the overall modernization does make it easier to manage. Force Control is a shooting-based skill that essentially is a shooting variant of Medaforce Seal, so it will inflict the same ailment and cancellation that the enemy is not able to unleash Medaforce. They can still charge it, they can still use attacks that rely on it for damage bonuses, but they are not allowed to release the Medaforce in a nuke or a skill, as long as that ailment is maintained on that target. Defense Seal is a shooting-based skill that, when applied to the target, will guarantee all hits that land will be critical hits, as they are unable to guard or even divert damage, or rely on any kind of damage reduction to keep it low. Now, they are still able to dodge attacks, but they are not able to defend, so every hit that lands, like I mentioned, is a guaranteed critical hit. Left Arm of Hypercrept is a support-based skill that will grant 2 random buffs to everybody in the team. This can include radar sight, shoot boost, guard boost, mobile boost, and so on, but they are chosen at random, so you really don't know what skills you have until you use it. And it is also worth noting that positive buffs can only be stacked up to 4, which means anytime after this, it does make it tricky to maintain. Float Legs means that Primity Baby will have good coverage on all terrains no matter what, given that it has A across all terrains and S of course at Cyber, and the auto repair leg ability is nice too, as it means that as long as Primity Baby has a Medaforce charge going, it will allow him to passively restore lost HP over time as long as he's not very quickly pummeled or nuked to prevent him from launching his skills. Now, in terms of being nuked and pummeled, he actually does have a very solid HP pool, which will make fighting him a little bit of a pain. And in addition to this, his legs do pack some pretty solid shoot and melee resist skills as well, which means that even if he may not move super fast or be the most dangerous on the field, the longer he stays on the field unattended, the more dangerous he can become and easier for his allies to kill you. Now with his Tuneup Treatment, basically he took everything that made him dangerous before and made himself either just a little bit faster, a little bit tankier, or his ailment skills a little more potent. In the case with his head, he has access to plus 100 each to his heat and cool, plus 200 to success, and the symptom also has a duration plus bonus to it, which means it'll last longer. That being said, naturally the duration plus is going to be the big bonus you want to shoot for the most, and then after that, I did say success was the next best after it, because it does guarantee higher likelihood of landing the hit and inflicting the ailment. But if you feel that you could go with heat and cool instead, I would say you could take it down at your own personal preference. Right arm has access to plus 100 to cool, plus 200 to success, and the debuff it applies will also grant an additional negative ailment of a 20% debuff to the target's shoot and melee resist. This means that as long as that ailment is in play, not only is the attack going to be incredibly painful, but even more so because they have much less of their damage reduction ability helping them to keep the damage as low as possible, no matter how painful it can be. Naturally, that debuff plus is the big ticket item to shoot for, and much like his head, you could shoot for success or cool either way. It boils down to preference, but reminder that success is the likelihood of landing the hit without the opponent dodging or grazing, and if an opponent grazes an ailment, it will not be applied. Left arm has access to plus 100 to heat and cool each, plus 200 to armor, and the Hypercrept skill gets an additional 10% stat bonus when activating a buff. This means instead of the standard 20% you would get from, say, shoot boost and mobile boost, you instead get a 30% bonus as long as the effect remains active. And given that Hypercrept is also 2 random buffs, it can be stacked multiple times until you have the max amount of buffs available to you. Easily enough, the Hypercrept bonus is the big one to shoot for that particular part, and after that, again, you could honestly shoot for heat or armor in this case pretty easily based on whichever one you want to go with. The 200 to armor is nice, but I wouldn't necessarily call it noticeable in my honest opinion, whereas plus 100 to heat and cool may not be super noticeable either, but it will definitely give him a little higher of an edge in battle if he needs to set that buff up sooner than later. His legs, which are float legs, good terrain, good stats, have access to plus 150 to mobility, plus 300 to armor, plus 300 each to his shoot and melee resist, and the auto repair leg ability gets an additional plus 20 charge efficiency while the leg skill is activated. So naturally that auto repair is the big ticket one you want to go with. But after that, with mobility, with armor, with shoot resist, Primity Baby honestly has a lot of really good buffs that could go toward his legs, and that makes it really tricky to pick one over the other in this particular instance, because plus 300 to the resist stats is actually pretty noticeable, plus 300 to armor is a nice bonus, and plus 150 to mobility no one's ever going to say no to. So aside from the auto repair bonus, I'd say much like all of his other parts, it would boil down to ultimately preference and how you choose to use him. That being said, factoring in Primity Baby's old pure set and mixed scores, I had him rated as a pretty solid 7 out of 10 across the board, not necessarily as nuker potential, but for his potential as an interruption fighter, which is his role ever since he was released in Medaforce 2. Given between Medaforce Seal and Defense Seal, he can make himself a very nasty pain in the neck once those debuffs are applied, and given that Hypercrept as well is a very solid skill, it is a very solid interruption support hybrid that you could use very easily. But factoring in the new buffs that he has access to, I would honestly have to bump him at a very solid 7.5 across the board for both his new pure set and his mixed parts skills. Given that, again, he is very tanky, good stat spread, good armor, and very dangerous skills if used correctly. Of course, it is worth noting that his ailments can be negated by anyone using Stat Cleanse, but in the case that Stat Cleanse is not inclusive or applied to the enemy side, Defense Seal and Medaforce Seal with the added debuffs included can make Primity Baby even more of a threat than he was before.